Section 2. Using copyrighted works in educational content. Welcome to Section 2 of Copyright for Educators. In Part 1, we introduced you to the definition of copyright, categories of copyright works, and ownership. In this section, we will discuss how you use copyrighted work in educational content. Let's continue. Fair dealing in education. The Bahamas has an equivalent to the United States copyright term fair use, called fair dealing. In the Bahamas, we follow the principle of fair dealing, which allows limited use of copyrighted material without permission, but only for specific purposes like research, review, or criticism, news reporting, or teaching. For example, quoting a few lines from a poem in a literature lesson may be fair dealing, but copying an entire chapter from a textbook and distributing it would not be. Just because fair dealing is the term used, it is not a blanket exception. Again, the portion used must be reasonable and appropriate. The use must not undermine the market value of the original work, and the source and author must be acknowledged where possible. So always ask, is the portion I'm using reasonable? Am I affecting the market value of the original work? If in doubt, seek permission. I'd like to go further by also explaining that reducing the market value of a work means perhaps you are copying or photocopying entire textbooks so that your students will have access to it. That reduces the market value of the book because the author of that book is no longer able to gain money or residual income from the sale of the book because they're being copied illegally. Licensing and permissions. When your use goes beyond fair dealing, you'll need to get permission. This is where licensing comes in. A license is legal permission to use a work under certain conditions. It can be exclusive or non-exclusive. You can request permission directly from the rights holder or use content that's already licensed for reuse, like Creative Commons materials. When trying to acquire permission, here are a few steps that you may find valuable. Identify the rights holder. That can be the author, publisher, or licensing agency. 2. Send a written request outlining how you plan to use the work. It may be helpful to include the version of the song, book, video, page, line, or timestamps, things that make it easier for the author. Section 17 and subsection 1 of the Copyright Act indicates that someone who owns a copyright can consent to any lawful use of the copyright or can waive their rights to a copyright work as laid out previously. Section 12 focuses on the right to be identified as the author, and Section 13 focuses on a right to object to derogatory treatment of work. For example, if a family has commissioned a photo from a photographer, paying for it, and the photographer, because the photo is a work for hire, is not the copyright holder of that image, the photographer cannot sell or license that image to another person. However, in the era of social media, common practice is to download someone's photo, especially for those considered to be public figures, and recreate or duplicate that photo as a piece of merchandise on t-shirts, cups, mugs, etc., your posters in class, without the written permission from the copyright holder, which would be the family. The family has not waived their copyright to the creators of that merchandise, and that photo is being illegally used to generate income or profits that do not benefit the family who are the copyright holders. More so, if that recreated image is considered derogatory, disrespectful, or not reflective of the morals, mores, or values of the photo subject or the family who owns the copyright, that, according to copyright law, can constitute legal action to recoup losses at most and demand a cease and desist at best. The same principle applies for popular cartoon characters, movie characters, landmarks, etc. So, educators, be mindful not to put yourself in a position to be subpoenaed or sued over unlawful use of copyright materials. Simply put, if you own the copyright, you may give up waive, or license those rights, and you may object to the derogatory use of your visual art as indicated in sections 12 and 13 respectively. Finally, if you are using someone's copyrighted material with permission, keep a record of the permission granted by the author in a file that's easily accessible. Be sure to review the time limits on your permission letters to ensure that your licenses are up to date in the event that you need to renew permissions. But where would you obtain content that can be used free of charge for educational purposes? Creative Commons licenses are a great resource for educators. They allow creators to share their work with clear rules, like whether you can modify it or use it commercially. You want to look for licenses like CC BY, which means you can use and adapt the work, just give credit, and CC BY and C, which means that you can adapt the work, just give credit, but it is for non-commercial use only. This means you cannot sell whatever you create using the copyright work, but you can use it. You can find Creative Commons licensed content on sites like Pixabay, Unsplash, and the Free Music Archive. I feel the need to define the term royalty as used in this presentation. A royalty is a fee paid to the copyright holder every time a copyright piece is used by anyone. When copyright material is royalty-free, that means the person seeking to use the material may pay a one-time fee and will no longer have to pay fees each time the copyright material is used. This means that royalty-free content is still the property of the original creator. You have the right to use the image, music, or video under the terms of the license. Royalty-free libraries also exist. Again, sites like Pixabay, Unsplash, and Free Music Archives may be helpful. Educational licenses are also available. Some publishers offer special terms for schools. Read the terms and conditions for any content site that you may choose to use. Now, let's talk a bit about attribution. Even when you have permission or are using Creative Commons content, you must give credit. A good attribution includes the creator's name, the title of the work, the license type, and a link to the source. For example, photo by Jane Doe, CCBY 4.0 via Sunsplash. This not only respects the creator, it models good digital citizenship for your students. Let's look at a few classroom scenarios. You want to use a song in a student video project. Check if it's royalty-free or get permission. You're creating a workbook. Use short excerpts and cite your sources. You're showing a film clip. Keep it brief and for instructional purposes only. When in doubt, use licensed or public domain content or create your own. Attributions are not only for work created by external sources, they are for educators and students as well. Here are a few things that educators can remember in the real world. When a copyright work is created for an employer by an employee, the employee should be credited. Here's a real-life example. This presentation is made as part of my work duties with the Department of Education. Therefore, in spite of all my hard work, the Department of Education owns the copyright. However, I am still credited for scripting, writing, and production of this content. That attribution will be found in the credits. This is the same for anything created in the execution of duties as an educator. The lesson plans, worksheets, passages, poems, books, drawings, paintings, videos, etc., if completed as part of the job, belong to the Department of Education. Thank you for completing Module 2. Please complete the questions which follow, and I'll see you in Module 3.